Welcome back to another great episode of the Bluegrass Soccercast, your home for all things soccer right here in the beautiful state of Kentucky. My name's Jimmy, that's John, and we have another fantastic show for you today. John, to kick us off today, I found a new website, and it does random kind of icebreaker questions, just randomly generated. So I'm going to hit the button, and I'm going to ask you whatever question pops up, all right?
All right.
And here we go. Click. What is your go-to karaoke song?
None.
None. John is
I
not
don't
a
do
karaokeer.
karaoke. If I had to
Okay,
pick
duly
one, it'd be
noted.
tequila.
Tequila. Is that
Now,
also your go-to drinking
if
choice?
they do, no. If
Oh,
they
okay.
do, if it's like the karaoke room things where I'm probably with friends, I'm probably more inclined to pick like something from Greta Van Fleet or Zach Bryan or Tyler Childers.
Hmm. I
But
can
if
see you as
it's,
a Tyler Childers guy.
I have a playlist on my Spotify. Hold up, let me pull it up. Where is it? Probably can't read that very well, but
No, what does it say?
there was this trend on TikTok about like it's a joke trend of like I don't believe in a God, but I believe in the Holy Trinity, and it's like a playlist of like their three favorites, and I call mine the Brian, the Con, and the Holy Childers.
I like it. I like it. I have never gone karaokeing, except for this one time last November. I was kind of like on the hosting committee for a conference that I went to, and we had a karaoke night, and nobody was singing. And so I got up and started singing. I don't remember what I sang though.
Well, it's because
Uh,
karaoke, like I said, karaoke, and you either have to be like super drunk, so social anxiety goes out the window,
right. There may have been some
or
libations involved,
you have to be a super extrovert,
which I
or
am
it has
definitely not.
or it has to be in those rooms with people you're
Right.
like comfortable with.
Which I was definitely not because there was a bunch of my peers at other institutions that I vaguely know their names at best. So it was an interesting time. But I sang, I think, 2 or 3 songs, me and the other hosts that night. But anyways, that's not what you're here for. What you are here for is some great soccer content, and we have some good stuff to talk about tonight. So, John, our main topic tonight is going to be talking about the downside potentially of promotion and relegation. But before we get into that, we had a couple of late breaking news, some things that came out today that we wanted to talk about first. The first story that I want to talk about is there's going to be, let me put it this, there's most likely going to be a brand new UPSL team in Louisville. So, according to a source that I have within the UPSL, they have told me that the UPSL is looking to get another club in Louisville after Metro Louisville has uh, not been active in the UPSL for the last couple of seasons. So there has been a new club that has applied for the UPSL. Now, what I don't officially know yet is if they've been accepted yet. But there is at least some strong conversations for a new UPSL side in Louisville. I know I saw some other people were kind of tweeting about it and stuff like that. So I heard right from my sources, and they said that those are true. So looks like we could be getting a new team in the UPSL Kentucky Tennessee division. They would most likely be in the division starting in the spring, if I had to guess. Kind of looking at the map and where things would place if the UPSL Kentucky Tennessee division kind of splits again, like they did the last spring. I could see them being in the same group with Bowling Green and maybe some other teams as well. Just kind of keeping on that like interstate corridor. You know, maybe if there's a team from E Town that comes back, haven't heard anything about that yet, but in case they did, that would be a really easy, home and home series for those 3 teams. Any thoughts on that one, John?
Um, I think it's good. for it. It's again, it's gonna be curious if it actually gets off the ground and stuff because
Yep.
what it was Metro Louisville was the one
Hmm.
that folded, and
They haven't completely folded for the Metro fans out there, but they got into the NWSL. Nope, that's not it. The NPSL, and they were supposed to be in a tournament, like a group stage tournament, and they unfortunately did not have enough. Either didn't have enough players, or didn't have enough money to get players there, or some combination of something around that, to where they had to forfeit all three of their group stage matches.
okay. Overall, I think it's a good idea. However, my question is, and this is kind of what we brought up with San Diego, is can, granted it's UPSL, so like more developmental league overall, can't does Louisville have the capability of supporting essentially four teams if you throw in Racing's W League in there at one time?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at our friend on Twitter, who was the Metro fan, what was it, Metro Louisville Ultras, or I think that was their handle.
Yeah,
I
like
think
Metro.
they kind of hinted towards a deep fan base for smaller club soccer in the city. And if you look at what the universities have been drawing there, I mean, I know it's a little different, but like U of L women's, U of L men's, Bellarmine men's and women's, Spalding, even Boyce, they get some decent crowd. At max, we're talking a couple hundred people at those games. But for UPSL match, that's quite impressive, honestly. I mean, the Tennessee Tempo down in Murfreesboro, nationally ranked, very competitive on a national scale, they draw maybe 50 fans. So, if you could get 100 out of the city of what, 2-3 million, I think you'd be doing pretty good.
And that honestly could be what it is. It's just I feel schools overinflate some people's ideas of soccer fans, and I feel overall it
True.
inflates some people's ideas of sports fans. Um, like football in the South. The SEC football runs the South, right?
Yep.
There is two, two, technically five. Oh no, six. There's six teams you could count in the South if you throw in Florida
For what level?
for the NFL. In terms
Oh,
of
yeah, yeah.
professional football, there's six if you throw in Florida. There's three if you take Florida out in the entirety of the South.
Well,
Yet,
but then are you not including Texas in that?
no, I'm
So
counting
what?
current
Saints.
SEC schools, current SEC states, current. Well, now Texas
Okay.
is in there. Saints,
Yeah,
yeah,
that.
okay, yeah.
So Saints,
But it's like
Texans,
the edging.
Cowboys. Yeah.
That's in general. It's these edging things. Like there's some major cities like Birmingham and all that in there, but like Clemson's a good example of this. Clemson Stadium is bigger than the population of the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah, Clemson, the city, is very small.
So I think to your point, I think if it's literally like UPSL, I know of teams. I don't really know what the expected average or any of that type of stuff with UPSL. If they can draw 100, which I think they probably could, then they can succeed. The what I don't want people, and this is kind of all over, people to equate, oh, this school gets a lot of support for this team, so thus they will support a pro team. And
Well, I think
that's not
Lexington's a
the
great
same.
example, right? Because the UK gets a lot of fans out at the Bell, and I think once Lexington Sporting Club gets their home stadium in Lexington, it'll be different. But right now, I would imagine, I haven't been to
I
a game
think
in a while, but I would imagine it's
technically
pretty close on
speaking,
attendance.
I think they've released the attendance. Let me check at least like the UK men's. I don't know if the women have played at home yet, but
They did. They
for
play.
them,
Did they play Eastern at home?
yes, they did. sorry, for the men's home opener, they had 992. This is at the nationally ranked men's side,
All
and
right.
two. I will say this to Lex Sports credit, they have never drawn below. They've never drawn below like 1,800. So they've drawn double
Wow, they've
that
doubled.
playing outside of Kentucky, outside of
Outside of
Lexington, which
Lexington.
everyone's like, well, that's why y'all aren't successful. It's like, that's not
That has
equated,
nothing to do with play on the field.
especially the way Lexington is designed. I will tell
Yeah.
people all this. Any point of Lexington is a drive from downtown. Any
Facts.
point any point from the edge of Lexington to downtown is a drive. So there's literally Lexington is laid out so poorly with how the streets work because y'all do these
Yeah.
circle thing that you have to go to the circle, ride
Yeah.
on the circle to then go in instead of more of a straight path. That it makes it everything is a drive. Yes,
Yep.
where I'm like 98% sure where the permanent stadium's going now is on the edges of it, but that's just that there was nowhere to build. They
Yeah.
couldn't get on the High Street project, they and all that type of stuff. And Newton Pike people did not want them there. So
Hmm.
y'all, it every as someone from Detroit, like Detroit is so huge, you can fit like Boston and some other big cities within the city limits.
Dang.
Yeah, it doesn't equate. Like if your team is good, you can build a fan base. Where the stadium's at doesn't matter. I don't know how I got on this tangent from
You're good.
Louisville UPSL, but
Well,
where
we're
the
talking about like
stadium,
attendances and stuff like that.
yeah, where the stadium is at doesn't matter, type of thing. And I think to UK men's credit, I think they haven't played like a Saturday game yet at
Yeah.
home. They've been like midweek, like they played Eastern Tennessee State on Monday night. So
Yeah. Hard
like
to
we'll
get a big
see.
crowd for that.
Yeah, so we'll
And
see
no
what
offense to E
happens.
Tennessee, but like it's not a marquee, opponent. It's not U of L. It's not South Carolina. It's
Yeah, it's
nothing
not a
like that.
marquee opponent. They're not men's basketball, which people would come.
Yeah.
I think what Rupp has some sort of like 15-year sellout streak or whatever going.
Sure.
But that's
A
that's also
lot.
because yeah, it's also because UK men's basketball, like people would come to just see UK men's basketball.
Right.
Like
They could be playing East Tennessee, for example, and sell it out.
they could be playing anyway. I genuinely think you could put Kentucky. There's a few schools you could put Kentucky basketball in Madison Square Garden, and it would be
Sold out.
75% full if they
Yep.
play like Bellarmine.
Oh, yeah, I
No
think
hate
it would
on
be
Bellarmine.
sold out.
Bellarmine's actually
No,
really
no hate.
good in men's basketball for
Yeah,
their
the
size,
whole
but like
transition
not
up and stuff.
as someone not from Kentucky, I'd never heard of Bellarmine until I came to Kentucky.
I don't think I had
So
heard of Bellarmine until at least undergrad, if not grad school.
yeah,
Like it had been a long time. But so that was the breaking news out of Louisville today, or well, this week. And John, you
since
had
Monday.
some news out of Lexington that you wanted to go over.
Yes. So for those who haven't seen, Lexington has signed 19-year-old Joshua Head, who's a former FC Cincinnati 2 player. He played 3 matches for them last year. Um, but mainly he's a former FC Cincinnati Academy player and a former Owensboro High School player. Uh, he
The
is the fifth.
Burrow.
He is the fifth Kentucky native to be on Lexington's 24-man squad. Granted, the only one who has seen consistent amount of playing time is Killian Fox. The others being academy slash really young players in Kimball Jackson, Diallo Irakoza, uh, Luke Phillips. Who's the other one? Kimball. Yeah, that's 3 because Josh is the 5th. Um, I'm 90% sure Josh was a former teammate of Kimball when they were at FC Cincinnati U19s, or U17s at least. They were in the academy basically at the same time, so I'm 90% sure they probably at least trained together.
So they should
For
have some
those,
chemistry to already build off of, you'd think, right?
yep. For those who pay attention at games, you've seen Josh around. He's probably done 2-3 week trial run with the team prior to this, because I've seen him being around with the reserves a lot and in training pictures and media content. But he's a big kid. He's very like I don't know
The
if y'all
pictures made him look huge.
he's very big and built. He's like I would guess 6'3", 6'4". So he's a big guy. And I included his huddle highlights that either he composed or someone composed on that page of him, and he's very good. He's a striker. It'll be interesting because he's our younger. Our striking core is already younger, but like he's our youth player,
He's
I
the
guess. Out of that,
youngest.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I would expect to see him play soon
So by
because
the end of this weekend, do you think he's playing, or do you think it'll be a little bit longer than that?
I would say within the next 3 matches, which is this weekend against Greenville, then they play Wednesday against NoCo at NoCo, and then they play at Fuego again. I would expect him to appear in one of those 3 games. I would see him appearing partially against Greenville, depending on what the score is and the
I could see that.
situation. But I would definitely expect him to get some playing time against Fuego.
Yeah, that was when you said the next 3 there. That's immediately what I thought of too. Was that Fuego game? Just get him a little more time to get into the professional setting with Lexington, get familiar with strategies and stuff like that. Not that he's not, but a little more time to get acclimated, get in there a little bit. Maybe honestly, the NoCo game would be a better like debut, and then maybe even fully start against Fuego.
Maybe. Um, but it'll be interesting to see as I need to double check the other player announcements, but he is only signed through this season. He is there is
I
an
missed
option
that.
there is an option to extend, a team option to extend. So it's very much that's why I think we'll see some of him within these last 8 matches, because it you don't it very much gives a thing of like you got 8 matches to prove if we should
Right.
keep you around type thing.
One of
Which
those
I don't see
prove
why
it
they
or lose it
not.
kind of things.
I believe USL is 25 or 30 roster spots total that you're allowed
I
to
don't
carry.
remember.
So we'll see. Active game is only 18, but I don't know the top. It's either 25 or 30. So Lexington is technically at 24, 25. I don't know, because Luke Phillips, he's at the academy contract keeper. He is not listed on the official roster on the website, so I don't know how he counts as a roster spot.
That's interesting because has he played
No,
this year? No.
no.
Who
It
who was
was
who filled in for Knight?
Knight started the first game, and then Causey went on like a 5 match
That's it,
thing
Causey.
against Louisville and stuff, and then it's been Knight ever since.
Yeah. So, some news in Louisville, some news in Lexington that kind of came out this week, and we just kind of wanted to get it out there for everybody and give you our thoughts on it. Now, John, before we do dive fully into the pro rel debate here, there is one more announcement to make. We here at the Bluegrass Soccer Cast have really been putting in a lot of work covering these college teams, and we've really appreciated all the support from the colleges and them opening up and being welcoming to us and to help us get some extra access and stuff like that. So we have decided to create a brand new competition, a brand new cup for the state of Kentucky, and it's an equal cup to where every team in Kentucky has a chance to win what we are calling the Commonwealth Cup. So, how is this going to be set up? So we have a spreadsheet with all of the teams in there, with all of their records in there, and it's pretty basic soccer math, right? For every win a team gets, they get 3 points. For every time they draw, they get 1 point. If they lose, no points. Also, no negative points either. But because we believe in our interstate competitions and we love to see, Murray and Eastern play and Moorhead and Western play and Boyce and Bellarmine play and so forth and so on, we decided to give bonus points. So every time a team beats an interstate team, they get 6 total points. They get their 3 for the victory, and then they get 3 bonus points. In a situation where an interstate matchup ends in a tie, both teams would get the 1 point for the tie and 1 bonus point for the interstate tie. So, with that in mind, the very first top 5 teams right here in the state of Kentucky with their point totals. I'm going to go from 5 to 1. So, number 5, the fifth team in our state, at least according to our BGSC Commonwealth Cup rankings, is the University of the Cumberland's women's team with 9 points. Coming in at fourth place, also with 9 points. So I guess both of these teams you could say they would be tied, but this team has a interstate win, which the University of Cumberland's women does not. Number 4, the University of Louisville men's team coming in at fourth. Next 2 teams are tied for second. Both they have the exact same record. They both have an interstate win. They have 12 total points. Just going in alphabetical order, we have Campbellsville men and Georgetown women occupying our second spot. They're tied there. And then alone at the top with the best overall record and the best in-state record, the University of Kentucky women's team with 13 total points. So that is your current top 5. We're working on some graphics and stuff like that to get this out to people. So make sure you come back every week to the Bluegrass Soccer Cast to get an update on Cup standings. And we might make some tweaks and stuff like that too. So give us your thoughts. But again, week 1 of the Bluegrass Soccer Cast Commonwealth Cup Challenge competition, whatever you want to call it, is the University of Kentucky women's team. So let's see if the Wildcats can go wire to wire, or who knows, maybe Campbellsville men, University of the Cumberland's women, maybe they can rack up some extra points and some wins here and go for the crown.
This did you say only regular season too?
Yes, this is only for regular season. Thank you. I did not say that, but only counts for the regular season. So if anybody makes a deep run in the playoffs, it's not going to help your cause.
Wait, this
And
is
we're
only
going to
regular. Sorry.
go for it. No, go for it.
This is only regular season. We are looking at doing a Stanley Cup-esque trophy to be awarded to the winners, partially because as freelancers, we don't want to be having to make a trophy every single year.
Facts.
But that we would like to present like physically to the winning school, and they would get to like keep it for some time.
Keep it for the year.
There's also some scoring notes. Some teams, specifically in this early stage, when certain teams of different leagues or divisions play each other, it can technically count for one team as an official game and another as an exhibition. Particularly, you'll see this with NAI and D3 schools playing each other. Some will count it as a scrimmage or exhibition. Others can technically count it as their official game. So with something like Berea played Georgetown the other day in women's, and that's, to my knowledge, that's what it is. I looked into this. This is a thing that like the NCAA allows sort of thing where you can schedule NAIA schools and it's a scrimmage, but the NAIA allows it to be an official game in terms of record books. Um, so while Berea it's not an official game. To Georgetown, it was. So
And Georgetown won that, correct?
they handily won that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's a Berea grad saying that.
Just a little poke in that. So we'll keep, like I said, we'll keep track of all this all season, and then as things wind down, if there's a clear winner, maybe on your last home game, we show up, we present the trophy after the game or something, or before the game, and we just celebrate great soccer here in our state. John, with all of that out of the way, let's dive on into this debate of promotion and relegation, the downside, the dark side, if you will. Now, John and I are both clearly proponents to doing promotion and relegation in this country. It increases competition. It gives a satisfactory reward system for teams that do really well. It removes teams that aren't doing well and promotes the teams that are trying to be as successful as possible. There's more local rivalries that can pop up because of that. Like Louisville and Lexington could be playing at the same level potentially here in our state. There are financial incentives to it. Bigger, the more you go up, the bigger TV deal, the more times your club is exposed, et cetera, more money in your pockets. And then lastly, it affirms more global norms right here within American soccer. But there is a downside to promotion and relegation. And John, I just kind of have some notes here, and I'm just going to kind of go one by one, and we'll talk it through. So, the first thing is it can become a financial nightmare for some teams. So if you're a current USL champion team and you get relegated down to whatever the bottom level of this potential pyramid could be, you're going to be hurting. Large financial gaps exist between the divisions. We talked about that. Relegated teams can really suffer significant revenue loss from TV contracts, from lack of sponsors wanting to pay as much because it's a lower tier, right? So, John, what are your thoughts on the financial despair part of promotion and relegation as a negative?
Okay, so the financial despair parts really only exist if you're starting it after a league has existed, primarily.
Which is what would be happening here, right?
Yes. However, the financials of it, yes, that is a thing, but the argument of it, yes, financials are a thing, and that's what owners of clubs care about, is their bottom line. However, keeping that bottom line, the best way they should be doing that is trying to win, trying to put a quality product on the field, or at least
Agreed.
a product that gets people in the stands. And you can do other parts of that if your team quality isn't the greatest. There's other ways to get people in the stands, but that should be your priority. There is no incentive, truly, in a closed league system that does revenue sharing to do. Now, there is revenue sharing in the Premier League and stuff like that, but there is no incentive to sell tickets or even compete if it was closed. Like currently, let me look it up.
While you're looking that up, I do want to attack on your point there. Yes, there is a massive lack of incentive currently in this country to push forward and to get better, right? Like if you're I mean, I'll pick on my team. I'll pick on Inter Miami. Without Lionel Messi and Busquets and Jordi Alba coming in, this team would still be the worst in the league, probably the worst ever in MLS. And they had a lot of money tied up into some former players, and there was no incentive for them to continue to push forward. Now, yes, now having Messi, there has been a lot of financial incentive to keep moving and to be aggressive and get the results. But for that, nope, not really.
And currently with the Premier League's current deal, so let's take what Leicester, I think finished. No, not Leicester. Well, Leicester I know got relegated along with Leeds and Southampton. All three of those clubs last year got 79 million pounds, which is equivalent to, I would have to say it's in the hundreds, 100 millions for the U.S. Yeah, it's like $104 million, and that's without selling anything. That is without opening their stadium to anybody. It's literally just putting a product on the field in front of the TV people. Tell me why, if we're in a closed system, and I am Southampton's uh, sporting director or owner, and I know I'm never going to compete with the big dogs money wise. I don't have the money to spend $1 billion in a year like Chelsea. I will just worry about developing players and putting out on the field a 60 million pound product that can compete. It doesn't look terrible. They still can compete decently, but they're not going to win every game. They're not going to be top of the league. They're not going to be playing in Europe. They will be mid to lower table. And that is guaranteed. If I'd put out a $60 million thing outside of transfer fees and stuff I would get from developing young players, that is $19 million profit.
Right.
Like, because I bet their stadium's paid off. Like, I don't have, like, I could put this behind closed doors, play it on TV. $19 million profit without selling a ticket in a closed league system. That is right there an incentive for that owner to not have to compete, to not have to try to win. Now you go, hey, if you finish last, you don't get that 79 million. It could cut basically in half almost if you drop. Then there's some incentive of at least don't be last.
Right.
Yes, it's
So
still going to be
there's
hard to
something
compete.
there.
Yeah, it's still going to be hard to be top, but there's at least something that says you can't just mail it in. You can't do what the 76ers did with the whole trust the process. You can't tank. Like, that's
You
the
don't want
thing.
to trust the process, John?
No, in these 10 years with that whole thing, there's been so many debates in the other sports of like, are this team tanking? Is tanking really okay? And should fans accept tanking? And every answer
No.
comes out to no. You know how you
No.
prevent tanking? You say, if you finish last, you're out of the league. And this
Right.
other team comes up.
Yeah.
That's how
If
you
you're not
prevent
going to be
tanking.
a steward of this franchise and a steward of this slot in this league, you're going to get bounced, and somebody else can come in and they would have their fair share at it. Now, something else that kind of ties into that, right? Especially talking about finances, could potentially be franchise instability. So if you take some of these USL teams and you drop them down, what does their model look like for paying wages, paying their stadium bills, like everything, so. And that's not good for the league, right? If you've got clubs that are close to or that continually close, that's not good either.
And the counter, I agree with that. Like, a lot of anti-pro people you'll deal with on Twitter, especially, is they bring up like 600 some odd clubs have folded for England or in the English system. The issue is none of them have folded in the top flight.
Right.
There have been former top flight teams that have folded, but none of them folded in the Premier League. The Tampa Bay Mutiny folded as an MLS club. San Diego Loyal are folding as a Division II club type thing. These clubs did like a Luton Town-esque thing where they went all the way up from a lower division. And they got up there. They were there for maybe a year or two, and then they fell down hard. That's what happened. And yes, for like the non-soccer, the lady that runs the ticket booth, and they run out of money and they can't pay her. Is that sad? Yes. But
I mean, look
to
back at the
American,
what was that? Sunderland Till I Die. You know, when they were getting, I think it was the first or second season when they got relegated down.
they got double relegated.
Yeah, so one of the times they got relegated.
They dropped back to back.
And I don't remember which move it was, but one of them, there was people like the chefs and stuff were like, we've seen this happen before. We know most of us, or at least one or two of us, are losing our jobs, so we're just going to be hopeful that it's not me, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's the
not
fringe
healthy.
staff members. It's not healthy, but the Americans who, if you want to pound your chest with capitalism, that is capitalism to a T. You have to cut loose ends when you have the books tight. That's just what you have to do. Right. But when you go up, you can, if you want to keep people on, you need to stay up, sort of thing. And it exists in all sports. We saw it with COVID, and all these owners that like weren't gonna pay their stadium workers because stadiums weren't open, type thing. Like, these owners don't care. Like I'm talking about the big time owners. They don't care about the fringe things. Lexington gets a scout troop to work our concession stands, and they work off of tips, type thing. Like, it's like fundraising.
Is great experience for those kids, right? To get that experience and stuff like that. But if Lexington had like full-time employees that was doing that, oof.
Yeah, that'd be rough if they got dropped down and stuff. But like, clubs can exist without it. Welcome to Wrexham. Before they stepped in, that whole board of people were volunteers. The chairman was a volunteer. Like, he had a legit job. And this is in the National League. This is the 5th tier of the English system. Like, this is the fully professional tier system, and their chairman was a volunteer.
Yep.
Like, it exists in England as well. That's why so many clubs are so worried about going down, and why it's such a big deal of falling down. You have to avoid it. It's just incentivizes more and more. I know we're trying to say the cons, but all the cons get overshadowed if you try to compete.
Right. If you have a genuine desire to compete and to be the best that you can, you're going to figure out a way, right?
And there's ways to do it.
Go for it.
You can be in an academy.
Yeah, there is ways.
You can be in an academy club that you focus on young talent enough that they compete against who is it? Like Ajax. Ajax is famous for this. Yes, they still compete in the Eredivisie fine and are top of that thing. But Ajax's players don't just get sold off because they play at Ajax. Ajax's players go for big money, or like Brighton this past year go for big money because clubs saw them compete against top clubs and do good. And these kids performed well against these top clubs, against top talent. It's not, oh, you're an Ajax kid, you're worth 60 million because you came through Ajax. No, it's because we saw the performance while you were at Ajax against, say, Mohamed Salah of Liverpool, one-on-one with
for much
Ronaldo.
Longer.
Yeah, maybe one-on-one with Ronaldo or Lewandowski in the Champions League, in Madrid or in Liverpool, type of thing, and you held your own, type of thing. That's what got those players sold and stuff. And that's what you can be. That's what Southampton has taught themselves. It's what Brighton did. Brighton got the biggest English contract ever for Caicedo because they performed well and did it. That's what the sad story about Leicester City is 6 years later, Jamie Vardy's the only one left of that squad.
Yeah, they completely had to wipe them out.
And because that's how they stayed up.
So another argument to not doing promotion relegation comes down to the agreement of the structure of the league, right? So there has to be a unified vision and an agreed upon system between the league, or in this situation, leagues, because it would be a 1, 2, and a 3, hypothetically, right? All of the teams and all of the other stakeholders within. So, your TV broadcasters, your main sponsors, your soccer ball sponsors, and all of that. What on how many divisions, how many teams are in the divisions, how many are getting promoted or relegated, what playoffs are there, etc., etc. And that's not easy to get a bunch of people on the same page. I mean, it would be really challenging to get Louisville and Lexington on the same page. Extrapolate that across the country here. I think it would be a massive challenge.
I think it is a challenge, and there's this weird terminology by anti-pro people of saying it's forced promotion relegation, where if it were to happen like with the USL, it's a vote that they're having.
Right.
So if it's 100 owners and 51 say yes, that's 51 yes. A large minority does not want it, but the majority rules. The majority of people want it, as close as 51 out of 100 is. That's the majority rule. So that means 51 want it. That's not forced on anyone. They had voice your opinion. Majority rules, people. Sorry. You can't, even if it was 90 to 10 saying no, those 10 cannot say, oh, you're forcing me into this. It's either, well, you can leave the league, sell your team, all this type of sense. But this is
you
what
don't
we've
want to
decided.
participate in pro rel, I mean, try and get up to the MLS, or you can drop down to NPSL. You could start your own league. There's still options for you. Maybe not great options, but there are options.
And with sponsors wise, I think in the USL's case, the only thing is, I would say, is the TV stuff. Is the TV deals really? Because outside of that, sponsors are either local. You have the ball sponsor, but I feel like a team that's the manufacturers are going to compete for that. You can easily get manufacturers to compete over that.
The USL has several like corporate sponsors. They've got Batavia University or something like that. I don't remember the name of the university, but they sponsor it. We talked about the Select, the soccer ball sponsor. I can't remember all of them. I had them on a PowerPoint
I mean,
somewhere.
off the top of my head, those are the two main. Like watching USL League One, each team has their own sponsored corner kicks.
Yep.
All the teams have basically their own sponsored sideboards besides one or two companies. So I'm like, if there is this whole like USL, these main ones, it's not that many overall. So I don't think it would impact them that much. Like Select might have some issues if the USL does go pro rel and they add the third division and they get D1 sanctioning. If I'm like Adidas or Nike or Puma, I'm gonna try to get my ball in that sort of thing associated with that.
So what you're telling me is it promotes capitalism?
Yeah, it promotes money.
Again, we're trying to give you the dark side of it and why it may be a bad thing, but I keep coming back
because
to
here's
the positives.
Here's the thing. The bad sides are all these like hypothetical or super extreme cases where it's so, yes, I understand financials and that sort of thing, but if you structure it well, all the cons solely fall back on the owner.
Right.
Does the owner or does the sporting director, whoever is signing checks or picking the team, are you actively trying to compete? And if you do the model of like, well, we can't compete as a top dog, like let's say Lex in this case, we can't compete on the field with Louisville because Louisville just has a bigger, more deeper pockets and that type of thing. Then you know what we can do? Louisville is an old team. They like to keep players around, that type of thing. We can go young, be
Yep.
7 years younger than Louisville, and we can sell a player to Louisville and make
Right.
money,
Make
and then
that money
maybe we
then.
can compete. That's
Yeah.
why Chelsea sent so many players. Granted, they wanted to get rid of them to the Saudi Arabia because their owner went in and spent $1 billion. Realized, hey, I don't make $1 billion in 1 year, revenue wise. And went, I have to offset these. This
Right. I got
country
to
is
sell
willing
some
to
of these
pay
guys.
$300 million for my goalkeeper that I don't want anymore. Take him.
Right. Bye. Have fun. Um, John, another kind of issue with promotion relegation could be logistic challenges, right? So, and this is a whole large topic within itself, right? So, there are two main sides that I kind of want to talk about, right? So, logistically speaking, talking about travel, if you're a team in Spokane that gets relegated, but the closest Western team to you is in Nashville, that's not the same. Like there's a major inequality there. Then the other logistical challenge is what's happening with Luton Town. Exactly what's happening with them is getting your stadium up to par with everyone else in your league. And if you're not a franchise that's flush with millions of dollars, you can't make that switch like that because it would be so expensive. And then if you get relegated out that next season, you've spent that money for nothing then.
I think, personally, I think the stadium thing is stupid and overrated. Um, in
Okay.
my
Hot take
in my
there.
in my opinion, the stadium standards should simply be does does it meet like safety protocols? Do you have like if a stadium's like the Oakland Coliseum, that's where you
No.
order, hey, you have to upgrade this or you need a different
Yes.
stadium. But
That's probably why the Roots don't play there. Maybe it's also
if
because
it's
they don't
like
have any fans.
if what was it? I'm trying to think of a smaller soccer specific I can think. If it's like Chattanooga Stadium, the Red Wolves, they have a soccer specific stadium. It's not that big. Um, it's smaller than Lynn. They shouldn't have to be on par with Lynn. And that's also another thing. A lot of USL teams do not own their stadium. A lot of
They do
USL
not.
teams do not play in a soccer specific stadium. So I don't see that happening in America per se. Just because if the USL went, well, this is the standard, uh, Lynn, that's it. And
Right.
gotta be remembered with Lynn also exists because of racing.
Yep. It's not
Like
just for Luke City.
you take racing out. I don't know fully if Lynn's as big as it is because
Good
that was
chance
a
it's not.
catalyst. That was a catalyst of Louisville getting racing. Was like you need this better stadium than a baseball stadium with a retractable mound.
Yeah. And that creates really interesting dynamics, right? If you're somebody like Omaha, Union Omaha, if you get promoted up, are you still playing in that baseball stadium? Or is there some other stadium that you want to retrofit? Is there a high school football stadium that you can redo the field for to where it's just soccer, bring in some additional bleachers? Is that what you do? Or, in Omaha's case, just to keep talking about them, do they go down to Lincoln and they play at the football stadium where the Nebraska Cornhuskers play, Memorial Stadium? What happens? Because I don't think you can't be on that stage, that D1 stage, and still be playing in a baseball park like Memphis or anything like that, Las
I
Vegas.
mean, like New York City FC does.
All right, that's a good point. That's a really good counterpoint there. But hey, they are building their own. That's a
Yes, they
really
are
good point.
building
Touche.
their own, but like that's the thing in America is, and this is my other point to the stadiums. There's just so many things. Like in England, they have maybe three types of stadiums. They have everything is soccer, and then there's cricket, and then they
Yep.
rugby. Rugby can be played on a soccer field, and it has been. And then you have cricket, which has to be played in its own place. But that's really it.
Yeah.
Like there a lot of people talk. There's not really basketball culture in England. There's not a hockey culture. We have just random sports that are popular. Like think about how many people pack volleyball games, college volleyball games, like when the team's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many people come out for college wrestling. We have so much random sports that people support. We have indoor football.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like this
And
country
it's a
loves American
legit
football so
league.
much, we put it inside.
It's a legit league with stupid rules
Yeah,
that no one like if you
legit
actively it's a professional league, to my knowledge. We have a professional
professional.
lacrosse league. There's a
We do.
professional rugby league here. There's attempts at professional cricket league here. Like,
There's a
and the only
professional women's football league. There
I'm
is.
not talking about them. Um,
Google it.
yeah, but think about that. Just genuinely think about that. That these other countries don't have all these leagues. We are so big that people are like, yeah, we can start this league and we just need like 500 people to come to our games. That's it.
Right.
And we can
That's
survive.
it.
And it's doable because we have such a big culture mix. And right now, soccer is moving towards being the third most popular sport in America. And I think I give it 10 years before I don't think it'll ever take football, but I give it 10 years and it's butting up with basketball. Because there's already reports with my generation of Gen Z coming out that we're like soccer is like our second most popular, that type of
Wait, are you
thing.
Gen Z?
Gen Z's oldest age is 28.
Jesus.
And I'm 23.
Wow. All right. I'll take my 33-year-old self and just sit here. Anyway, so John, talk a little bit about the other side of that. I talked about the travel logistical challenge of
Oh
that.
yeah. I was trying to remember what the other one was, but I
You're
couldn't
good.
in
I
my
got you.
head. Travel. See, and this is the one thing that's different about the U.S. Like I dealt with some guy on Twitter about this because I said like the Super League is equivalent to the MLS, and he's like, "No, it's not. It's over. The Super League was going to take teams from like different countries and stuff like that. For the MLS to be like that, they would take teams from Mexico and all this stuff." I was like,
Oh,
"If
you
you
mean like
can,
they've talked about doing?
yeah, but you can do this. Go look at a map of the U.S. over Europe. Washington is essentially Ireland."
Yep.
So, like northwest point, Florida is in Greece. Y'all, genuinely, Europe is not that big, and they
Right.
have these Champions League. That's why I Porto in Portugal could be playing Sunday league match, and then they're in Poland for a Champions League game on Tuesday, and then they'll have the Portugal League Cup on Thursday before they play a Saturday match. Played another Saturday match in Portugal. It's that kind of thing where it's just that easy for them to do, and that yes, there is logistics to traveling, and I think you can wrap that up in league new shares. I sharing in general, and that's really fours and caps come into that because it can be
Yeah.
like we cap this and we revenue sharing. You should be able to both afford and then travel costs at the same time.
I don't know if I believe in a salary cap in soccer because I believe if we are going to really make soccer the sport in this country, We're one of, if not the richest countries in the world. I think we got to wipe away the salary cap, bring in all the best players from all around the world, and not just when they're on their back nine, on their retirement tours, when they're in their prime, and just flood the leagues with cash, but do it smartly, right? Don't be getting the third
Well,
best goalkeeper on a team the same money as, you know, a starter in the EPL.
and that's why you do some cap. And here's the thing: the cap can be set real high. The thing with it is you make sure, like, if Elon Musk buys a team, you can't just like spend more the entire like double the payroll of another team just because the owner can't cap at that. And that's the issue I have with England right now, and that's why those top six clubs solely exist.
Mm-hmm.
Is because their names are so big, they bring in so much revenue that they're able to spend that much. But the issues arise when they don't, the other clubs try to compete. There are clubs existing in the EPL right now who are like, eighth is our goal. We could solidly do eighth. And I have always said this. A pro of MLS's closed system is parity.
Yeah. Well, the
They
idea of parity.
Well, they have had like in 10 years, they've had 8 or 9 different winners, 8 or 9 Shield winners. They've had a lot of parity. Like the Sounders have been the most dominant team, and they've only won like 2 or 3
Yeah.
Shields and like things. And that's in 10 years. And so it exists, parity exists in the MLS, where like in the last 10 years of the top 5 leagues, England has the most difference, and that's with 5 different teams have won it. 3 in Serie A, Bundesliga, and Ligue 1, and 4 in Spain, maybe. No, but yeah, it's very close. Like, and that's where I feel if you cap the league a little bit, and I'm not saying it has to be a real close cap. You can literally just look at what the biggest team spends right now and cap. Say that's the cap. You're the top dog right now. You spend the most money. You're the cap. You can't spend more money. If you want to bring in other players, sell somebody, sort of thing, or move money around.
I mean, I
It
guess you don't want it to get to be a situation where one team has all the stars, right?
Yes,
I guess
and
you wouldn't want that.
that's and that's the thing. People think cap, and they think it's like you have to make it really tight, so like only a team can have 2 or 3 stars. I'm like, no, you can make it super high still, but there's a point where you can't spend 500 million in one season, off season. You can't spend 500 million in a month like Chelsea did. Like you just can't do that.
Jeez.
They
I
did
wish
that
I had
last
some of
January
that.
with that new owner. You just can't do that because that's just
No.
not realistic and fair to be paying someone to sit on your bench more than what Brighton in this case can pay their starter at that same position. Like
Yeah.
that's where I'm like type thing. And that's it. That's literally of what MLS does, in my opinion. That's it. And that if you cap it, and you have you have to have some salary rules. I think MLS needs to do away with a lot of the roster rules, but you
Yes.
can have some. And if you do those some and be like, you can still afford travel costs if you abide by these rules. If you want to do a soft cap like the MLB, where you get taxed,
Okay. Okay. Now that I could get behind.
if you want to spend more, and
Right.
that tax goes to the other teams
Right.
in terms of
Because
revenue.
I mean, in baseball, like you're giving out $100 million contracts, like they're candy. It seems like. Um,
Well,
so I could
they
get behind that.
they also are giving out 12-year deals.
Well,
So
true.
like
Yes.
Mike Trout signed 420 million for 13 years. Where
Sheesh.
we haven't seen that type of thing. So I think it equates to no, they don't make more than like, I think Scherzer and Verlander's contracts from the Mets recently is like 48 is the most yearly.
Jeez.
But what we're at least seeing as part is that both Chelsea and the Mets suck.
That's right. The
I am a
Mets suck.
Detroit Tigers fan at heart, and the Mets have almost double our payroll, and I have one more win than us.
Love to see it. So,
Chelsea
John,
has spent $1 billion, and they're not top 4 or top 5, and they finished 12th last year after spending $500 million.
right.
So
So yeah, maybe with a soft cap or something, it does discourage people from trying to buy their way to the top or something like that, because then they have to contribute extra to a shared revenue fund or something like that. I could get behind something like that, to help spend or send the money out to other clubs so that everyone has a chance, right?
and the
But
Richmond Kickers winless streak extends to 10. They just tied Fuego.
wow.
That
I mean,
means they will have
Lexington.
gone over a month. I think they'll play on Saturday. They have gone over 2 months without a win.
That's intriguing for sure.
Which
Well,
means they also jumped Lexington, so Lexington's back in 10th right now, but they're only behind by a point.
yeah, and with a good opportunity this weekend, but we'll get to that here in just a second. John, there was I had two other points here that I wanted to talk about as kind of negatives to promotion and relegation systems. One, local support uncertainty. As your team falls down, of course, more people or I'm sorry, less people are going to continue to come to matches. But the opposite side of that is also true. As you go up, you would expect more and more people to come into your stadium and to try and support the team or try and support the visiting team as well. So I think that also presents some very unique challenges. But
That's the
John, we see
case.
that in Europe all the time.
Yeah, Sunderland Till I Die is a great example of this. Stadium is pretty half empty. There is fair weather fans in every
Oh
single
yeah,
place.
I
The
mean, just to
whole
make it a
jab
more
of
home example, like the Bowling Green Golden Lions, their first season, their very first season, they made it all the way to the round of 16, and they were pulling 300-400 fans every game for that. Now that they're a little bit, they're still competitive in the league, but they're not the top dog anymore. You see a little more of a struggle. You're getting more closer to 50 to 100 fans at every game.
Mhm. And that happens. That
Yeah,
exists in every sport. You very rarely will see a team constantly bad that just has endless fan support besides like the Colorado Rockies.
right.
Um, that's just because they
Nice
have a great
baseball stadium.
stadium and there's
Yeah.
nothing else to do in Denver, truly, besides go hike.
I like hiking, so
I like
I like
hiking
Denver.
too. I like hiking too, but there's a point where if you're living there, there's nothing outside of just go to a sports game.
Any
They
sports game.
probably
We'll go to cornhole.
they probably have legit. I've never been to Denver, but Denver always
It's
draws
nice.
well in every single sport.
Yeah.
And a lot of people equate to that there's really nothing to do there because their whole thing is like the mountains and being like the major city type thing. Um, but you you the whole joke forever in the EPL with Man City ever since they got bought by their guy was like there was this chant
The
about how
Glazers.
no, they're bought by the Abu Dhabi owner,
Oh
Manchester
yeah.
City. Is
Yeah.
how
Okay.
their stadium is half empty and type stuff because their owner paid for a really nice new stadium. And as they've gotten better and more competitive and all that type of stuff, they're starting to fill the stadium because there's documentaries out there. If you went into in 2005, so a little before this guy bought the team, you went into a Manchester school and you asked 10 kids what team they support, 9 out of 10 would say Manchester United.
Right.
And now it's shifted more towards Man City because there's fair weather even within cities, even within families within cities of historic clubs, because the kid's like, well, that team's winning, I'm going to support that team. And that's just how it goes. It exists everywhere, type thing. Kentucky football, Kroger Field is magically starting to fill ever since Mark Stoops is here. But I vividly recall like watching games of Kentucky and there's next to no one there because Kentucky football sucked. And so, like, that's what it is. That's what happens. If you're good, you're good. Same thing with Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if Bowling Green is like this, but all of a sudden, these people are Cincinnati fans.
Yeah.
I was in Kentucky when the switch happened. When Burrow was here, I was a student in Kentucky. I watched all of a sudden all these people are Bengals fans, and they were like going like, "Who dey?" I they went, "You literally told me you would never watch a Bengals game." And all of a sudden they got Joe Burrow and they got Jamar Chase, and all of a sudden it's like, "Who dey?"
And they made it to the Super Bowl, right?
As a struggling Lions
that was an interesting time.
Yeah, out of nowhere too. They made the playoffs. Yeah. The thing with the Bengals for the past 20 years prior to that is they made the playoffs, but they're going to lose in the first round.
Awful.
All of a sudden,
Carson Palmer
they make the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden the Who Dey Nation comes out in full, and it's the prime example. I'm seeing it with the Cincinnati Reds because they're exciting and young right now. You're seeing it with Manchester City; they're really exciting. You're seeing the Inter Miami fans come out of the woodwork because of Messi. So
hold on now, watch it.
Some of us have been here the whole time. I'm saying in general, you're seeing racing.
Some of us were watching the terrible days when we had an aging Higuain who I felt like played with a cigarette in his mouth half the time, and you had Ralph Pizarro who just looked lost at times. But
you're seeing it with Racing Louisville as they're entering their granted, this is only Racing's third year. As they're entering their third year, they're a little more competitive this year. Oh, all of a sudden people are coming.
More fans.
They're Fill Their Fam thing. The Butcher
set the record for them.
Butcher Town podcast, I think that's what it's called.
Butcher Town Rundown?
Yeah, something like that. They were talking about this on their show they just released today. How they managed to fill the fam without having to advertise like Gotham apparently did for their fill their stadium. The opposing player. Apparently when Gotham did their thing, they did against San Diego, which Alex Morgan plays, and they advertised, come see Alex Morgan play. So they didn't have to go wait for the OL Reign to come and be like, come see Megan Rapinoe in Louisville type thing. Or
Rose Lavelle.
Yeah, or whoever. It was just come see racing. Come support Racing Louisville. And that's good signs. They're seeing an increase in it. And the team is being more competitive. They're draw city, but those games that they're drawing, they would have lost previously in the previous years. So as you see it, and this is the same thing I'm telling the Lex fans, you will see it if the team starts being good because fair weather fans exist in every single sport. There is no club. If I'm dead serious, Manchester City and United, Tottenham, all these clubs drop. Italy's a little different. Italy are crazy. But if these big clubs drop, genuinely speaking, and they just plummet, Old Trafford's not being filled for a National League game. For just a it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. That's not how it's
a random Tuesday night. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not how it's going to work.
Well, and that brings me kind of to the last point that I had here as the potential final downside of promotion relegation, which is the disruption of long-term traditions. So if you look at Manchester City, Manchester United, like that derby, if you look at, I'm trying to think, like in America, El Trafico in LA, like disrupting something like that.
Be
That
good.
could really hurt. Well, yes, no, I mean that's
Be
literally the
competitive.
counterpoint is
Be
be
good.
competitive.
Roma, I'm a AS Roma fan. That's probably the closest like club I fully support. And Roma and Lazio are huge rivals. Like the Roma derby for a while was like if you aren't a fan, like there would be warnings in Rome because it's a tourist attraction. Do not go near the stadium during this time because it got violent at times. Um, that's because Roma and Lazio at times were not competing. They were like getting seventh and eighth in the Serie A. So it literally the Rome Derby was their championship of the year. They weren't playing in Europe because they weren't that good. All this
Right.
type of stuff. Be good, and you'll keep these rivalries. New rivalries will develop.
Yes,
Liverpool and Manchester United only exist because they're the two most successful clubs in England. The Manchester Derby, a lot of Manchester fans 10 years, 15 years ago would tell you that Liverpool's their biggest rival. The
they
Manchester
definitely
Derby
did.
only got big because Man City got it. When the Premier League started, I'm 90% positive on this. Let me look it up. I don't think Manchester City was in it.
No, like they weren't. They definitely weren't one of the biggest clubs in the world at that time, right?
Yeah, but okay, City was in it, but you have Ipswich Town. They're famous for not being that. For Oldham Athletic, QPR, Sheffield Wednesday, they're back. Wimbledon, who's folded, who's changed. Coventry City, and all these type stuff. These clubs have were these are the initial founding members of the Premier League, and they have fallen out. Ipswich Town, I believe, is in League One right now. They might be in the championship. Sunderland wasn't in the initial Premier League team. Newcastle versus Sunderland is a huge rivalry. You can ask
Very,
Charlie
very
Mangel
big.
about this. It's a huge rivalry. It hasn't happened much because they're in different spots. And that's the thing. The rivalry will still exist. If Pro-Rel existed and Lou and Lex were in the same division for 2 years, and all of a sudden Louisville drops and has some trouble, and they're a division below Lexington. The only way we can face is occasionally in the Open Cup or something like that. It becomes a big deal. That becomes bragging rights. It's the same with Knoxville. If Knoxville drops and Lexington stays up, they can go, well, we have a better record against you. It's like, you are in a lower league than us. Shut up.
That would be the
Come
dream,
up
eh?
here. Get up here to play us. Same
I
with Lou.
can't.
If it
I
opens,
can't see you under my nose.
yeah, with Lou, if the Pro Rel opens, do that to Lexington fans. I'm saying do that. If we try to talk to you, really like, come up here, come play us.
Right.
Come on, we'll
Get up
play
to our
you. Get
level.
up here. Yeah. Like, do the levels like, you want to play us? You want these rivalries to exist? Both rivals need to be good. It makes it even better for a derby because both are good, and it results in that. These rivalries should not just solely exist to exist. As a Michigan football fan, when Ohio State stayed good and Michigan stumbled, it sucks.
Oh
The,
yeah,
the
and
rivalry
it
has no
hurts the
punch.
sport.
Yeah, the rivalry has no punch if Michigan is losing 30 to 30 points. That
Yeah.
like Nebraska versus Texas, or not Nebraska, Oklahoma versus Texas is like a huge rivalry that everyone talks about. It's not really since Texas has fallen off.
Right. It has lost its shine a little bit.
Auburn,
Indeed.
Alabama. I vividly remember the famous Kick Six Iron Bowl game. Since Auburn has dropped off and Alabama just whoops them, it doesn't really matter anymore. Kentucky versus Tennessee has only really started to matter within the last 5 years in college football. Same thing with Louisville, Kentucky. This was not a legit football rivalry. It was a basketball rivalry. All of a sudden, both schools have some success in football, and all of a sudden, because of football, oh, we've always been a football rivalry thing with your Governor's Cup or whatever it's called.
I mean, I
It's
think
like,
that
no,
started in the early 2000s. Like that, even that wasn't a thing for all that long, really.
yeah, there's these random rivalries that exist. that yeah, the fans of the schools will care about, but nationally, no one's going to care about
Yeah.
unless you're good, and that's how it's going to be internationally. There are thousands of derbies. There are derbies in I forget. I don't know what country they're in. Red Star Belgrade versus somebody is way, way more intense than anything we see in England or France or Italy. And this is in the Balkans in like Serbia or something like that. Way more intense, way more fans. No one cares about them because they're not big in Europe. That's
Nope.
just how it is. The Boca Juniors versus River Plate is probably the biggest thing in Argentina. No one cares about it because no one follows Argentine football really that much in America. Chivas versus Club America is big in America because of our large Mexican Hispanic population. But I, as an American, don't really have any ties to Mexico or Liga MX. I know it's a big rivalry because it's the two biggest clubs in Mexico. I don't really think I would just turn it on to watch it personally.
Yeah, no, I don't think I could even just turn it on to see, Tigres versus Monterrey or something like that. Like, I don't know about that.
They're not big, and that's the thing with even El Trafico. Yes, El Trafico is big in LA because LA is a heavily populated city. I really, when it happened with the Rose Bowl, I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'll check it out, but I wasn't
Yeah,
gonna
that
sit
was
and
cool.
watch. I'm not gonna sit and watch it because the Galaxy sucked at the time, and I was like, I expected LA to dominate. Granted, the Galaxy, I believe, won that match
They
in
did.
the
They
Rose
did.
Bowl, but it's
Well, and that
not.
brings up something interesting too. Like when you play at those unique stadiums or those unique venues and stuff like that, you do get a spike in attendance, right? Like if you look back a couple of years ago when Major League Baseball had their Field of Dreams game, I
Well,
watched,
that
but
was
like since
specifically.
then, I have not watched a baseball game.
Yeah, there you have these one-offs type thing, but there has been what I'm trying to think of since I don't know who Cincy's rivals outside Columbus would be.
Do what?
Cincinnati outside of Columbus, who is their rival
Louisville?
in MLS. In
Oh, in
MLS.
MLS? Nashville because of proximity?
Yeah, and that does happen type thing, but I'm trying to think of where it's like a good team and a bad team right now. I can't think
Both
off the
New
top of my
York
head.
teams are bad.
Yeah. New England versus New York. New England's pretty good this year. That's not really gonna pack out people type thing. The whole hell is real thing, it only really worked in the MLS because both Columbus was kind of slightly trending down while Cincinnati was trending up, so they were kind of meeting in their quality of play. But like Charlotte versus Atlanta is like a manufactured rivalry
Yeah,
because
that's no
of
real rivalry.
proximity, but Charlotte's been dog walked by Atlanta. And that's another thing that people talk about. Like, there's these manufactured rivalries in American soccer. It's like, it's not manufactured, it's closeness. That's
Right.
what a
It's
rivalry is.
proximity.
It's
Yeah.
proximity, and there's other relations in play. Like, some people have said this about the Lex Knox. Like, oh, this is manufactured. They're first year sides. How can they be rivals? Because UK and not Tennessee are rivals.
Right.
They're
Like
both
that's
in the
the
city.
difference.
And they're like, well, they've brought in college sports into this. This is stupid. It's like that we're in college
That's
towns.
the
That's how it's
point.
gonna. That's how it's
I've
gonna
never
exist.
understood that. Like
Indy versus
the
Lou is a rivalry of proximity.
yes. I don't understand this argument against soccer, but using college football as an example, right? Like if you were trying to tell me that soccer will never be a thing because you're a big college football person and college basketball and that's all you love, blah blah blah. Dude, it's the same mentality. It's the same thing with soccer, just on a global scale. Like that passion that you have for Alabama football is the exact same passion that Argentinian fans have for Argentina, or for in Portugal that they have for. I just dropped that team, Lisbon. Like It's the same thing, and I don't understand why people feel that way.
It's
But
because they don't. I don't know what it is, but they. It's the one. It's the idea that soccer is boring. That people think soccer is boring, and it's because like I equate that like hockey is the same, but they're like
it's
they're
on
not
ice,
sissies
and
in hockey and they collide or whatever. It's the dumb. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this to some people and you might get offended. The meathead mentality. Because if you watch a football game, I like watching
yeah,
football. I truly do
I do
like watching
too.
American football.
I
But
love college football.
if you actively took a stopwatch and started it every time this ball was physically snapped, and you stopped it the second the ref blows the whistle to end the play, you get 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a game for a 3 hour game. If you did that
Yeah.
in soccer, I think last year they said because like the EPL is addressing issues, there was like 57 minutes of total action in a 90-minute game. That still means a majority of the game clock there is action. A majority of the football, American football game clock, a quarter is 15 minutes. So
Yep.
you're saying you're getting 1/4 of the total game clock is actual action.
Yep. The rest is just running off the top there.
Or not even running off the top. The clock just runs in football, like it
Yeah.
does for soccer. But the players are just standing around. At least when the players
Waiting for the
semi,
play or whatever.
yeah. At least when players semi stand around in soccer, it's like the ball is still live. So if a player wanted to, they could go at that player to get the ball.
Yeah. So, John, that's kind of my thoughts. Any additional thoughts? Any other topics that you want to talk about as far as potential downsides to promotion and relegation?
Like it's all I said. The downsides are owners. If an owner is
Yes.
not buying in,
The
the thing
billionaires.
is ish in the USL. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yes.
here's the
Ish.
thing. Here's the thing. Too many, and people will say, "Well, it's risky to own a team." If you're owning one of the top 5 teams in America, it's not risky. You're guaranteed profit. You're guaranteed investment in them. The Royals owner is like a prime example of this. He like bought the team in the 90s. They sucked. Very end of this thing, they won the World Series and he sold them for like 120% profit or something like that. It's you don't have to compete if you're a top 5 owner. There is some risk at these lower league stuff. Yes, there's very much risk into like Lexington I know is in the black, so they're not even like making a profit. There's some risk to that. However, in the full scale things, an owner should be, if I'm personally a sports owner, and I'm breaking even and my team is as competitive as I can make them to be, I'm accepting that. If I am raking in the cash and my team's at the bottom, this is me.
Then there's
I'm
no incentive.
I'm not doing anything. I'm literally
Yep.
sitting there in my little owner's
Just
box with all my
bring in
free
the money.
stuff, lining my pockets because I don't choose to actively put a team on the field that can compete.
Absolutely.
It
So,
all falls back on the owners. The owners have to be willing to try to win for the sake of the fans. Yes, fans, you can argue you pay players, but you really don't. You're giving the owner money to choose how he does.
right. And to say what he can or what he should do with his money, based on a bunch of different factors. But so I think it's pretty safe to say that while there are a lot of pros, there are some cons that can overshadow the positives for promotion and relegation. If the USL is going to do this, overcoming these many challenges it is going to be difficult. Like it's not going to be easy to get everyone to agree, and it's not going to be easy to get everybody to buy in. But I think that's why it was such a good thing that they delayed the vote. Hopefully, they do something this, fall, winter, whatever you want to call it, when they have those meetings, and they get ready to launch it. In what would that be at that point? 25. Like, I don't think that would be too much to ask. But so, with that spirited conversation out of the way, if you enjoy the content on this show and you want to continue to support us, we have a Buy Me a Coffee account. This is a great way for you to continue to directly support the show. We appreciate any and all donations. We will always keep this show and all of our writings and stuff like that free for people. We'll never put it behind a paywall. But we do always welcome and appreciate any and all donations. But John, with all of that out of the way, let's go to the bottom line. And John, this week we have several things to talk about now that we have thrown the colleges in here. We touched on this a little bit on Monday, so we won't go the full in depth like we typically do because we already kind of talked about stuff. But John, let's start in Lexington, where they host the Greenville Triumph. How is this matchup looking in your eyes, John?
So this matchup is looking very interesting. We haven't the thing with this matchup, and it's me and Tyler Crane are trying to call this the Green Team Gauntlet, trying to make it this like kind of another
I like it.
derby,
I like
derby esque.
The Green Bowl.
I don't like using bowl. That's too college football.
Whatever.
The
Green Derby.
I'm fine with that.
The Green Berets.
Both sides come into this.
The Green Lanterns.
Both sides come into this matchup in very different aspects than we did last time. So last time we faced, it was a 2-0 loss to Triumph, but that was way back in April. And both teams are in different situations. Going into that match, the Triumph and Lex were basically the same sort of thing. Triumph were actually dead last in the league going into that matchup. Lex were 10th. Both were coming off of their first wins of the year, sort of thing. However, Greenville has since played really well for a stretch, and they are now 6th in the table, where Lexington is now 10th. That we were 9th, but Richmond just tied to jump back up by 1 point. The teams are heavy. Greenville is a very defensive team, so they've only scored 3 more goals.
It's truly a boring club to watch. Like, I don't.
They play a 3-3-1.
I hate it.
I
hate it.
They play a 3-3-1. So for anyone who knows that in your head you're imagining that doesn't sound very defensive. That is extremely defensive.
Yes.
Because what they're doing is essentially they have three center backs they're running, but then they have 3 defensive midfielders. And then they're running 3 attacking midfielders or just central midfield, depending on how, with a striker up top. This team, and you'll see this in my write-up, I include this. So Greenville is 5th in goals conceded at 1.3, but they are 0.1 behind first place Knoxville. So like 1 through 4 are all tied at 1.2. They're 2nd in interceptions per match, 1st in successful tackles per match, 2nd in clearances per match, 3rd in saves per match, and 3rd in possessions won in the final third. This is a very extremely defensive team that's also a little aggressive on the ball attacking-wise. It does equate for boring soccer. It truly does.
Yeah,
but
I will go on record and I will grandstand. Greenville, come at me at BG Soccercast on Twitter or wherever. Your brand of football is boring, and I hate watching you all. Like, it is so monotonous and just a wasted strategy. Like, do better, be aggressive. God, I hate it.
It works, and this is the thing. I am personally, as much as someone who hates watching boring soccer, if a system works, you keep it. I will always argue that to the day I die. If it works,
I get it, but
doing it. In any sport, I'm like this. If it works, as much as people might hate how it is, as long as you're not playing dirty, which they don't play dirty, they're a very clean team. Least number of yellow cards, only have 1 red card.
Yeah, you're
Um,
not a foul team in that way.
if
But
it's boring and you win, it works. But
but Greenville, you are the reason that the casual fan says soccer is boring. Like I can't tell you how much I dislike Greenville.
with that being said, it's also like we don't really know how these teams are going to match up because last time they played, Lexington picked up a very early red, a debatable in my opinion, straight red, in the 27th minute. Greenville then scored in 10 minutes after that, and then they scored their second in 94th minute. So it's
Yeah,
a
because they
very
weren't
different.
attacking; they were just sitting back, waiting for a mistake. Ugh, do better, Greenville.
Um, well, and they capitalized on the two mistakes. Like it's again, if the strategy works, keep it. Um, However, they have struggled a bit on the road. They have they have had two losses and two ties in their last four on the road. Their last win on the road was at Fuego. They have a negative goal differential on the road. It's one, but they still have negative. Lexington's the third best team in the league at home. So this is on paper. This is very much as it's gonna suck, Lex fans. This is very much going to be like the last two games. It's gonna be a grueling fest to whoever flinches first. And I'm thinking it's gonna be a 1-0 type game. Or it could be even a 0-0 draw.
That was more where I was headed in predicting. And this is an important matchup for Greenville, right, in the standings. They are in sixth place right now. They're the last playoff team in. If things were to end today, they are 4 points clear of South Georgia Tormenta. So this is an important game that they need to get points from in some way, right? They're only 1 point back from Madison, from
They
being,
are
even
4
more
points within
comfortable in.
striking distance of third.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that was my next thing.
it
Like this
is
is
very
important for
tight.
them too,
It is very tight.
even if you do play like crap or play a crap
This is
formation.
very tight. The Triumphs are at that line, so they themselves can't drop.
No,
But Lexington does still have a shot, and Lexington's played very much better under this new formation. They are only 4-1-2, so that means they've had a positive result in 5 out of 7 games. For in this thing. Granted, the two losses were both shutouts, but that happens.
right? That
Um,
that happens.
so this is very interesting. This matchup is very interesting because the Triumphs are a team we have faced again during our new formation type thing. The last time we played, it was a very interesting game. We played with 10 men for majority of that game. So it's going to be very interesting. I am going to go with a 1-1 draw.
I'm gonna go 0-0 draw. To as much as I despise their formation and their tactics and them existing in general, I think that the defensiveness of them will really challenge Lexington. I don't think they have any kind of prayers of getting anything on the offensive end, but I think this has got 0-0 draw written all over it. And you're welcome, people who dislike soccer, because this is exactly why people don't like soccer. But let's move on to some more exciting soccer. Let's talk about Lou City. They have a very, very important match on the road this weekend at Colorado Springs Switchbacks. This is important for both teams. Right now, Lou City's sitting in fourth place with 38 points. Or I'm sorry, 40 points. Misread. And the Switchbacks are in sixth place with 36 points, uh, and in the west side of the bracket here. So a good chance for Colorado to make up some ground on SD Loyals or the Oakland Roots, but an even better chance for Lou City to cut into that Charleston Battery lead if they can get a victory. Um, just kind of looking at how the teams are performing overall. Lou City currently has a -1 goal differential. and so does Colorado Springs. So this to me is a very even match, at least on paper, coming in. And Lou City is heading out to Colorado Springs. And considering some of the issues that Lou City has been having, I think this one could be very challenging for Lou City to get um, the result that they need to get even higher in the table, or to be honest, secure their spot in fourth place. As Memphis is only 2 point. Memphis, Indianapolis are only two back, and they're only four up on Birmingham.
Colorado comes into this game with 3 starters suspended because of red cards. They have a lot of players who've gotten picked up yellows this past game. The City needs to dominate this game. This is a game you have to dominate. You need to show up.
You
This
should
team
at least.
This is being handed a win. I don't like to say this a lot, but truly it is. A win is being handed to you on a platter, not in the middle of the game, prior to the game.
Yes.
If you set up and prep right, you should win this game. I'm not saying win in dominant fashion per se. What I think Blue City should do that is they should dominate this game. But a win, if you tie, that is a loss. If you go in and you draw with that is equivalent to a loss, and that is a win for the Switchbacks.
Yes, and Lou City, like, this is your chance. Like, you got a little bit of momentum, a little bit of energy moving in the positive direction, right? So it's time. Let's keep it moving.
Fully
get the
take
result.
that. Fully take him in as the stoppage time winner. Yep. Ride that hot hand into Colorado. Use it against a side that's literally being handed to you of playing 3 of their non-normal starters, and take it to them.
Yeah.
Literally pour it on. Do what you did to Tulsa.
Yes. Bring back that mentality. Come out with that aggressiveness, and it shouldn't be an issue. And I believe, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm completely making this up. Did I see that if you come to the Racing Louisville game on Saturday, after they're done, they're going to have like a special presentation of the Lou City game? Is that right, or did I completely make that up?
Lou City is hosting a watch party. It's not at the stadium, though.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason at the stadium. Never mind. Disregard. Don't listen to me.
It is. Let me pull it up. I shared that in our. Where is it? We talk too much on Discord sometimes.
Yes, we do. We are very active on Discord.
They will be at number 15 of Whiskey Row.
Oh, that's right.
Which I don't know how far that is from the stadium. So,
no clue, man. I've been to Louisville only a handful of times my entire life, but so I'm gonna predict in this one. I'm gonna go Lou City. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna go 2-1, but don't play with me. Like, let's get up 2-0 and maybe let up one in like the 70 or 80th minute. Like, let's be dominant.
It's okay. So the watch party is 5 minutes from the stadium. So go to Racing, hop on over. I think it's 2-0 Lou City. They're missing their 2 strikers. You should not be letting in a goal. You should. Semele is too good for that. You should not be letting in a goal.
2-1. I revised my score 2-0 as well. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. That changes things.
This is another thing of like the back line. Get it figured out. You have the chance. They don't have that. They don't have their primary attacking threat. Figure it out. This is where you can like truly figure it out. Get it together, because you got. I think their next after this is a tough matchup.
Yeah, they play Tampa Bay at home for San Diego, at Miami. Yeah, so like it's not getting easier.
Those two. They're at Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah, at Tampa Bay.
You need this momentum. You need this momentum going into Tampa Bay. They're the top dogs of the East, I think. Or is it River?
They are. Oh, no, they're not. That's right. Riverhounds took them over a couple weeks ago.
All right.
4 points clear.
they're still a top dog in the East. They're higher up than you, and you're going up against a
7
loyal
points above.
side that wants to go out on top.
Yeah.
So
Take care of
you
business
can't.
this weekend
You gotta
and make
keep
it
the
easy.
momentum rolling.
Right. Speaking of keeping momentum rolling, let's stay in Louisville as we head to Racing Louisville. This weekend, Racing Louisville are set to host the Portland Thorns on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time. Um, and the Bluegrass Soccercast will be there. So make sure that if you can't make it out, if you're in Paducah, you're in Pikeville or something like that, you can't make it all the way up to Louisville, make sure you check out all of our coverage. We will have stuff here on YouTube and on Twitch, or I'm sorry, Twitter or X, whatever it's called. So stick to all of our coverage, and we really look forward to getting out there and showing some love for Racing Louisville. But John, when we look at this matchup here, this is an interesting one. You've got Portland Thorns, the number 1 team in the league, versus Racing Louisville, the number 8 seed. But there's only 8 points different between 1 and 8, right? In the standings. Racing Louisville with a win, and depending on how some other results go, could find themselves into the playoffs, or at least tied for the last spot in the playoffs if they can win. So this is a very important matchup. Racing Louisville, we know they've drawn 3 out of their last 4. They won the other one, so they're in good form. Portland in their last 4, 2 losses, 1 draw, 1 win. So they're not as hot as Racing is. So I really think Racing, as much as we just talked about Lou City having a chance to make a statement, Racing Louisville, this is your chance at home. Plant the flag and make a statement. Beat the Portland Thorns, move into at least a tie or maybe 1 point out of 6th place, and let's get the party started.
They need urgency. There is
Yes,
no
desperately.
urgency. There's no fight at times in this team from what I've seen, to win. They don't
Yeah.
look like they want to win. They just
Nope.
kind of looking there, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the starters are not worried because they've solidified basically everything but the front 3. As much as DeMello is signed through 2026, and she's been playing good, but I'm just pulling her as an example. Whoever is behind her, or whoever could possibly replace her, step it up, force her to be better in practice. That we're seeing the same issues we saw with the U.S. women's team with this Racing team.
It's
There's
amazing, isn't it? Like
tactics
how
are
similar
weird.
things are.
He's not Coach Kim is not subbing. It's really, really weird what's going on because there's not urgency. There doesn't seem to like he's accepting draws.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be accepting a draw. And you especially can't accept a draw against the best team in the league. Portland has had Racing's number. Racing has never beat Portland. Racing has been shut out in 4 out of 5 matches against Portland. They've only scored 1 goal, and that 1 goal was at home. But Portland, I'm pretty sure it's in the double digits of the goals they've scored on Racing.
Oh, I'm sure based on the results alone, right?
Yeah, because they had like a 5-0 drubbing in there or something. Yeah. 3-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-0, 2-0. So yeah, that is
1 goal that they've ever scored against them.
That's 12-1. They've given up 12 goals in 5 games and only scored 1 against Portland. You need, if you can't, 8th place or barely in the playoffs is not acceptable, even if you're a third-year side. It's just not.
Nope. You got to start making progress.
You're in a 12-team league. Lexington is an expansion team. It's a 12-team league. Half the teams make the playoffs. You have too much talent. Granted, you're now at 5 World Cup players. who all you have the 5 players that actually had consistent playing time. This is no knock on Chidiac. You
Mm-mm.
have the 5 players who actually had consistent playing time in the World Cup, which means they are among the best 11 for their country, for some of the better countries in the women in the world in the World Cup. All but what was it? Brazil fired their manager just because of how bad they did for in Ari's case, and same thing was China just had a bad tournament in general. You have 5 players who represent major countries in the women's game in the starting 11 consistently. There is no reason that you should be accepting draws. There's just
Yep.
not.
And John, you mentioned that you need that urgency. Like specifically, I'm looking at a player either like Wang or Page. Like y'all got to step it back
The
up. Like
entire
yes,
attack needs to just be. They
even
are too
Demillo,
heavy
you
footed.
got to step
They
it
are
up too.
they're too heavy footed. There is
You
no
don't want to
reason
like if you're
play like
Demillo, you don't want to go back to this is a very outdated, a very obscure reference, but you don't want to be the Albert Hainsworth of the NWSL. Albert Hainsworth was a very successful Tennessee Titan defensive lineman, and then he got a big fat contract and went up to Washington, the football team up there, and just was nothing. Like didn't do anything. So like Demillo, you got your contract. Let's let's do something now.
yes.
Like let's get some goals.
From
Set some people
everything
up.
all the reporting I'm seeing, all the talk I'm seeing, racing is building something culturally where players want to be in Louisville, which is a big question about it. They're all this type of stuff. They want to be in Louisville, and they are like as much as we do have 3 professional, soon to be 4 professional soccer teams, and there's a bunch of other professional baseball teams in it. Racing is the only top dog. They're the
Yep.
only team in the entire state. They're in their top. There's no teams above them in terms of leagues. There's no league above racing in America. There is no reason that if you're building such a culture thing that you are accepting 8th, that you are accepting barely maybe making the playoffs. You need to be contending. You need to want to take it to everyone. You need to want to be just like Lou City.
Yep.
And it
Yeah.
just
Sorry, I don't have more to add to that.
stop. You should be rocketing shots off in the box. None of this like taking 8, 3, 4 touches. It should be as if you have an angle, take it. If you don't, pass it off. Like force the
Right.
defense to do something. It's just so. It seems that they're all scared or they all want to play together, and there's just where DeMello, just do it. Ari, just
Yep.
do it. Shang,
Get
just
through
do
it.
it. Don't worry about your teammate. If you think you can score, score.
Right.
There's a
Thimby. Get
point.
it. If you can take the
There
shot
is
off,
a
get it.
if you're dominant, if you're doing what Erling Haaland's doing, sure, go pass it off to your teammate because you're
or
having fun.
Messi,
It's like
except for
I'm
tonight.
sharing, I'm sharing the love. Share the love. But if you're
Right.
not doing that, Messi has had to do it himself. He's had to go in, and his team sucks. He's had to go score. Ronaldo's had to do it. Lewandowski has that famous thing where he gets subbed on against like Wolfsburg or whatever, and he scores 5 goals in 9 minutes because
Yep.
his manager literally went, "Go, just do it, score." That
So
just
fun
needs to
fact
happen.
tonight,
I don't know who.
Messi did not score, and Inter Miami drew. So right to your
Yeah,
point there.
I also think I saw that was the first time Inter Miami's been shut out
Yep.
with Messi.
First time.
Um,
So when we're looking at this one, I'm going to go 2-1 to Racing. I think they come out, they have that hunger in their belly, and they knock them off, and they put themselves right within striking distance of making the playoffs. How do you think this one goes, John?
until I see the urgency, they're still queens of the draw, and it's 1-1. Until I need to see it. I need to see it.
Well,
Physically,
you
I need
will.
to
You'll
see
see
it.
it
I
live.
have faith. I have faith, and I think in my heart the 2-1 is possible. I'm not saying like this is a 1-1. They pull it away from Portland. I think knowing how this team has played so far, I think Portland pulls the win away from Racing in
Mm,
this. But if
that
I
would be
see the
heartbreaking.
urgency, if I see the urgency within the first 15 minutes, I'm thinking it's 2-1 or
Yeah.
1-0. But I need to see it. I need to see that the players want to win, not just survive.
Indeed, indeed. And so, John, with that, we'll jump on over to our college teams. I don't really have a whole lot of notes here. I've had a very hectic week. So, for the majority of what I have is just very simple, like who's the next opponent and so forth and so on. So, John, I'll kick us off here with the University of Louisville. They had a very competitive match with Bellarmine. I know the score line 3-0 doesn't indicate it, but it was literally as simple as the Cardinals were able to finish their opportunities and score the goals, and Bellarmine couldn't. So that was for the Louisville men. They play again on Friday night at UNC Greensboro. So that should be another interesting matchup. And I believe that game will be on the ACC Plus network.
Yep.
So Louisville fans, you can watch that.
And then
As far as go for it.
also on the men's side, in terms of games, Kentucky played as well. They had a grueling match against Eastern Tennessee on Monday that they just pulled out thanks to Ben Damage in the 87th minute. Like literally, Eastern Tennessee took it to them. I'm surprised
Yeah,
that the Cats
they
moved
played a
up to
good
number
game.
2. I'm very surprised that the Cats moved up to number 2. I don't know how. This is what I truly hate about. It's the same with college football and basketball about these teams that are on the outside of the top 25 that aren't bad. You don't know where like you just see unranked, and so you're like, is this like a
Are they
hundredth or
trash?
98th unranked? Is this like upset unranked? Like they're genuine like, oh, they're like 30th
Right, they're
type
right on the
type.
cusp, kind of a thing.
Yeah. But they got the win. That's all that matters. And then they're traveling up to Wisconsin on Friday.
Take on the
And
Badgers.
yeah, and then the Norsemen don't play at all this week. They're off this week. They play next week on, I think it's a Tuesday. They play again.
Yeah, all I had noted on my schedule here for them was no matches this week. For Bellarmine men, to close out that, we talked about that closer than the score indicated. 3-0 loss at Louisville earlier this week. They then play on Friday on the road again at Purdue, Fort Wayne University, Indiana, whatever, the Mastodons, not the other ones. Jumping over to women, I'll close out the University of Louisville. They have 2 games this week, both at home. The first one should be a very entertaining match tomorrow night against Illinois. Anytime you get a ACC Big Ten matchup like this, it's always going to be entertaining. So it should be a good one for the University of Louisville. Hopefully they can kind of right the ship and get their first victory, but Illinois is pretty tough. And then on Sunday, they host Central Michigan. And if you're looking for a victory, I would circle that game.
What? EKU is also traveling tomorrow. They play DePaul up in Chicago. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
that can be a very interesting matchup. And then they're hosting Eastern Michigan on
The
Sunday.
Eastern Bowl. that needs to be a thing, like the Eastern something, the East.
Just quiet you. Um,
The East Cup.
Moorhead, staying on the east side of the state. Moorhead played today against Wright State. They drew 0-0 in that. Um, Gibbs got a shutout. very tightly fought game. Only 5 shots on goal. Just looking at box score right now.
Very
5
defensive.
shots on goal on that one.
They must play like
And then
Greenville.
yeah, and then they go to Austin Pay down in Tennessee.
Austin P. Flush that P, baby. Flush that P. Flush that P. Anyways, they're big rivals with Murray and Moorhead and Eastern and Western. So, speaking of Western, they play on Friday night, continuing their large homestand to begin the season. They host North Alabama. I know absolutely nothing about North Alabama, but I would assume that this should be a match that the Lady Topper should be able to capitalize on and should get an easy 2-0 win. Then they have a big rivalry match with Belmont on Sunday at home again. So, it's going to be a great soccer weekend here in Bowling Green. So head on out Friday night versus North Alabama, Sunday versus those pesky Belmont Bruins. Speaking again on the western side of state, Murray State, which of course has moved up to the Missouri Valley Conference, has 2 road games this week against current Ohio Valley Conference, which is Murray's previous conference affiliation. They're playing at the newest team to jump up into the league from the Division II level, Lindenwood, which is near St. Louis. And then on Sunday, they play at their longtime rivals, UT Martin. And that's always a competitive match between the two schools. I have no clue how good Lindenwood is. They were surprisingly good in football last year, so I'd imagine they'd be pretty competitive in soccer as well. But I think this should be 2 wins for the Racers as long as Coach Lodge has the team that I think he thinks he has. Bless you.
Wrapping up, going northish, UK. The women have a 2-match homestand this week. On Thursday, they play UT Martin.
Hey,
and then
UT Martin.
And then on Saturday, they play Illinois, the dumbest, who has one of the dumbest names in sports.
The Illini?
The Fighting Illini. We are fighting people from Illinois.
I mean, that's what they are. I mean, it's like Notre Dame being the Fighting Irish.
Well, no, the funniest thing is that their mascot for a while was like an Indian chief or
Chief
Native American. So I'm just like, there was, to my knowledge, I probably need to brush up. There's no First Nations tribe called the Illini. That is just
that I don't know.
Coined. So they literally
I do not have the knowledge on that one.
So it's just weird. And then NKU host Ohio U, or they go to Ohio U on Sunday.
Absolutely. And then I'll close this out talking about Bellarmine. Tomorrow night, their women head to Evansville, and if you know anything about soccer in this region, you know that Evansville, both men's and women's, very competitive. But then on Sunday, they return home to play Chicago State. So that should be another very good matchup for Bellarmine as they continue in this transition up to the Division I level. But John, with all that out of the way, that will wrap up today's episode of the Bluegrass Soccer Cast. I want to thank you all so much for watching us and listening to us and just joining us in general on this journey. Please make sure to follow us on all those social media handles like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and the handle is at BG Soccercast. Make sure to give us a listen on all your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Google, Apple, and Siri, which just turned on. Oh no, hold on. I hope you can still hear me. Yep. Oh no, it's starting to play music. Oh no. Massive technical difficulties. This is entertaining. Yep. Can't make this stuff up. So please make sure to follow us on all of those great platforms. Try not to trigger your home devices when you do it, though. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, and do all those great things to help support the channel. This is Jimmy, the technologically challenged one. That's John. And we will see you on the next